Hello and welcome to the Fishing Guide Podcast. I am your host, Brad Wiegmann, and in the house, we happen to have Crappie Magnet is in the house, and so Jeff and Lane, and we're going to find out kind of the history behind how it all started, and then we're actually going to get some insight from Lane about fishing, and also, everyone wants to know what the son of someone who owns a lure company does during the summer and stuff, so you'll be able to tell them what happens. But start with the history.
Well, we started out as a trout company back in the 90s. Myself and a really good friend started trout fishing, and it was our passion. I mean, we started making lures, and we made a little bit of everything. But when we came out with the jig, we called it at the time, which was a jig that fell flat in the water. And so most jigs fall head weight, but this one would fall flat. And we would outfish everybody. It was unbelievable. For the first couple of years, it was just outfish people. It wasn't about selling it. It wasn't even a thought, really, to be honest with you. We just wanted to catch fish. But it got to be where people were really after us because there was nothing like it on the market back in the 90s. And so we were given an opportunity by a local Walmart to say, if you package this thing up, we'll sell it for you.
Right.
Well, we did that. By the time I got it packaged a year later, they had done away with that idea. You couldn't sell directly to a store.
Right.
Yeah, Bentonville came into play, which I've never heard of that town before, right?
That's
back
right.
in 97, 98.
Yeah.
But God had opened up a door that I couldn't have opened. The guy in the store that day was over the East Coast Walmarts. And he was there checking on that store, but he'd come to town to take his dad from trout fishing in our state. Right. So the next day I took them trout fishing, and we just, destroyed them. And a few weeks later, we were in the store. Actually, a week later to that day, we were in their store. And so from that, we were the first sale we ever made of a fishing lure was to Walmart, which was not smart. Yeah, we were not ready for it.
You weren't ready.
Making our garage. We were not very. we were not thinking this through, right?
That's
and
right.
So we had packaged it, got it ready to go. We only had the Trout Magnet in 8 colors at the time, and it just exploded. At the time, there weren't a whole lot of trout lures on the market, and so it hit a market that was empty, and it was a really good lure. But we found out really quick people were using this thing for crappie. And we weren't crappie fishermen. We caught some. We accidentally went to a pond or something, but we weren't targeting them. And so after a couple of years, we were approached by a large retailer to make it called the Crappie Magnet. It was actually, because at the time, you think about this, in 2000, nobody was making crappie lures. No one targeted them, right?
Right.
Well, we made it, and it was bad wrong. It was horrible. It fell flat like the Trout Magnet, but it didn't catch them like the Trout Magnet did. It wasn't big enough. It didn't have the right buoyancy. And so it failed miserably, and we were just kind of like, what are we going to do now? Let's go back to trout, right? And so we kind of licking our wounds. And I get a call one day from my sister-in-law had given a crappie magnet, the first ones, to a guy in Nashville, Tennessee called Dude Maddox.
Right.
Harold is his first name, but he goes by Dude, and he's a legend in the state of Tennessee. And this was his quote to me. He called me one day, and he said, I got this crappie magnet. He says, this is the quote, "It's the next to nearest nothing I've ever seen." I was like, well, good to meet you too, dude. Right. But he was being kind because he's like, however, you're onto something with the split tail. The split tail actually works better than a straight tail. And so he went on to help me create what is the Crappie Magnet now. And that's how it all started.
Wow.
And so we were single pole fishing for crappie at that point. That's all we were doing.
Right.
Well, as I get into the crappie world, I realized there's long liners, there's power trollers, there's spider riggers. So what we did at that point is we connected with all the people that did those things well, and they helped make our brand.
There you
So
go.
we were very fortunate. We've been blessed. I mean, God just connected all those dots, with Dude Maddox being the first one, to Les Smith, to now Blake Phillips, who's the inventor of the eye hole. And he and I have partnered together with that product, which is unbelievable. It's just a product that everybody can use, and it's not on the market. And so it's a little bit different than what's out there. So the crappie products came along as we were learning how to crappie fish, but we connected ourselves with the smartest and the best crappie fishermen out there.
Yep. And that takes us to you, Lane. All of a sudden, you grow. You're 14 years old, and so what happens on a normal day? Does your dad put you to work with the broom and get you going in a factory, or do you actually get to do some fun stuff with the plastics?
I do get to do some fun stuff with the plastics, but I do sometimes have to sweep. But yeah,
He does. Yeah.
I do make some lures and fish ponds, obviously, and trout fish too. But yeah, I make some lures with. We were talking about that plaster of Paris stuff, and that went really well.
Yeah, he learned how to make molds. But the funny thing about Lane is he didn't really like the trout fish growing up.
Oh, really?
It was kind of weird.
I went.
He would go,
yeah.
but he really didn't like it. And when we hit COVID,
Right.
And we went to Dale Hollow Lake.
Oh, wow.
And he was there at a media event.
Uh-huh.
And he helped every person at that media event catch a trout because they were all stacked up around the dock.
There were a ton of fish.
I bet she caught 1,000 trout that weekend, easy.
Wow.
And he would hand the pole to people. And from that point on, every time I turn around, he's gone with a fishing pole now. So it's been really cool to see. I thought, well, he's not going to fish. That's okay. He likes baseball and some other things. But now he's the bass guy. So this stuff here this weekend has been more up his alley than than our alley.
And so a normal, let's say a normal day during the school system, when school's in, what's a normal day like? And what's it like
I'll
in
tell
the
you
summer?
before he answers that. He texts me at noon, right? Dad, can you pick me up at 3:30 and drop me off? Or the other part is he'll take it with him.
I'll take it. I'm going to put it on my mom's car, and then I'll go to her car and go fishing in a creek beside the school.
Yeah, because you're down in Gers Ferry.
We're down
God's country.
We're south of that. That's exactly right. Yeah, but he's fishing every day now. It's pretty fun to watch to see a kid who didn't fish at all. Now he's ate up with it.
So after school fishing, if you're not in sports, but in the summer, let's talk about in the summer. How do you get away from your dad? I mean, he's probably a guard, like a pit bull, sitting next to the door waiting for you to sneak by.
I go with my friend or Braden, the guy out there working. I'll go with him or some other people.
You come up with a reason to go fishing. Research. You need to learn that word.
He's made bass lures, which is kind of funny. Yeah, he's made some that I don't think they work yet, but that's okay. He's working on it.
I've caught a few fish. One.
An honest fisherman. An honest fisherman will never get anywhere.
You know what they say about fishermen? We're all born honest, but we get over it, right? we just somehow change, right?
So talk a little bit about. There's a difference in your products. So you have a trout line and you have a crappie line.
Yeah. Well, we found out years ago that some of the lures were made as a generalization for fishing, and they work good. But as you start looking at them, that lure typically had a use. And I tell people this all the time. Like, oh, I tried your company, I tried this company, but I like this one. I'm like, well, you're probably using that bait how it was intended to be used, right? So each product has its own use and own location, type of fishing style, whatever it might be. So what we tried to do is we tried to reduce that down to say to the consumer, if you do this style of fishing, this bait's for you, right?
Okay.
And so it's worked a little bit, but it also really limits us sometimes too. Because you think about the Trout Magnet, man, it's one of the best crappie baits we got, right?
Right.
And if people don't know that, in fact, a guy came in the booth yesterday and goes, oh, I don't want to get this line, it's Trout line. I'm like, ooh, that's the line I use for crappie, right?
I told a guy today, we use that for crappie.
Yeah. So it does limit us. We try to, push our products to say, here's what it does. Well, we'll do some other things too.
Right.
But we really try to market it in a way that educates. Growing up, my dad didn't know how to fish, right? So I didn't catch many fish. And so when I was first introduced to it, and we started catching fish, all the questions came about, why? I got that didn't work. And so I know what that feels like to go into a store, especially going to these stores now. You go to Bass Pro and you go, what in the world? Where do I even start? And I have a fishing lure company. I don't know where to start, right? And so what we tried to do is we tried to hone it down to say, if you trout fish, here's your product. You crappie fish, here's your product. And even within the crappie line, if you long line, if you cast, if you do these things. So we're trying to help the consumer see exactly what they need. And so if it's used for its proper intention, typically that lure will be really good. All of our lures work, right, in a certain environment, because we've made them for that environment, right? You try it outside that environment, a lot of times you go, man, this thing's horrible, right? It doesn't even work. So anyway, that's kind of where we are. We've stayed in the trout and the crappie. We're also very strong in the panfish market,
right?
Because we make a lot of very small lures. In fact, we have a new bait coming out this summer called the Brim Boss, and it's a combination of the eye-hole jig and a fuzzy body. It is a killer for brim. It's an absolute destroyer. So we've had the Trout Magnet and the Panfish Magnet for years, but that's one of the new products. We have some new crappie stuff coming out really in the next few weeks. On the crappie side, some big baits. We have a new one called the Hammer. We have one called the Roo, which is from the kangaroo. It actually holds the bait in a pouch.
Right.
So as the fish bite it, the scent oozes out. So those two are coming out. We also have some trout stuff that's coming out too. Yeah.
Let's talk about first fish. You remember the first fish you
I
caught,
do.
Jeff? All
Here's
right.
the deal.
And you're going to be next.
Yeah.
So you'll be.
I remember.
He
his.
already
I got
knows.
a picture of it.
Yeah. Well, he gets to do his own.
Okay,
you
good,
do
yeah,
your
yeah.
own.
Yeah, yeah.
All
So
right.
here's the deal. So my dad didn't know how to catch fish.
Okay.
So growing up, we would go and not catch anything. And I remember I caught a few brim when I was younger, but I'd never caught a trout. And we went 3 or 4 years at 0. Never
Right.
caught one. So I finally go one day to an opening day of Pennsylvania trout season, and we go and you wait till 8 o'clock and you cast in. And I caught my first trout. I think it was on a mealworm. I think it was on a little piece of bait of some type.
Right.
And I remember thinking, all these people around me are catching a lot more than me. There's got to be something different than what
Right.
they're doing, right? But I remember being so excited about it and getting my picture taken 18 different ways of that one trout, right?
Right.
And so looking back on it, I know what that father and son feels like. And we'll see them a lot of times on the bank and be like, hey, you want to catch a fish? Because we know how to do it now, right? We've been very fortunate that, we can get in a boat and pretty much catch a trout pretty easily.
Right.
Where back in the day, that wasn't the case. So anyways.
How about you, Lane? First fish.
I think I was really small. I don't know how old I was. I was probably 4 or 5. I think it was I can't really remember. It was a bass or a crappie. I think.
Yeah, I'm about to show you.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this. He's pulling out the
Yeah.
photo.
It was
I'll show you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was really little, and
Really little.
And you kept this photo.
yeah, I kept this.
So, and
yeah,
he's
yeah.
14, so that photo's 10
Yeah,
years
it's,
old.
It's pretty old. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure I've got it right here. See if I see it. I know. I'm pretty sure I had it right there.
And what did you catch it on, Lane, while he's looking?
Crappie magnet.
He
I
did.
remember.
That's
Oh, you
exactly
did?
right.
You
yeah.
caught-
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he caught it on a crappie magnet.
So you throwing a spinning rod or spin cast?
It was a
Like a
spinning
Zebco 33?
No,
No?
it wasn't. It was a
Oh.
B&M pole. It was a
B&M
Sam's.
pole.
B&M pole.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm looking. I'm going to
And while he's looking, have you got the fish with Les Smith?
Yes, sir.
You have?
It-
You can tell us. We won't tell anyone, but you're a better fisherman than Les, aren't you?
No, I can't say that. He's a.
Is he the godfather
Mm-hmm.
He
of crappie
is.
fishing?
Yes, sir.
Godfather of power trolling? Yep.
All the
So
way.
you gone with caught many a limits. What do you think Les does that's different from everyone else? Because you fish with other people.
Mm-hmm. He probably like focuses more on like the little things, like the color, what the poles. He has a bunch of poles. How his boat is, and like mainly the color. So.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, he's very detail oriented, isn't he, Lane?
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking for this fish, Lane. I can't believe I
Uh-oh.
can't find this fish. I'm still scrolling.
So did you catch it from shore or in a boat?
Sure.
Oh, you caught it from shore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think so. Is that right?
Yeah, I think I know
Yeah.
where it's at now. I just remembered. It's in this folder. Here it is, right
there
here.
it is, right there.
There
Oh,
it is.
look at that. So it was
He would've been
cold.
4
It was
years
cold.
old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cold.
There's a duck commander pole now. I see.
Yep.
Yeah.
Duck Commander pole, B&M.
He didn't
Yep.
know it. He didn't have a clue what he had done. Look at that face. It's like, oh,
That's
yeah, You
funny.
can see that. I don't know if you can see that on
Yeah,
the
you
screen
can
there.
see it on the
Yeah,
thing.
you
Yeah,
can-
right
oh,
there.
there you can see
Right there.
the crappie magnet in his mouth.
That's
You know,
pretty
I would
cool
say
right
somebody
there.
said this yesterday. Someone said this
Yeah.
yesterday. No, who was that saying that? It was Kevin Van Dam. He was talking about make sure they catch something, right?
Right? Yeah,
And so I think there's something to that.
there is.
There's something to making sure just catch a fish, and people get all hung up on if it's bait or it's a lure, and
Right.
get them a fish, right? Get something
Yep.
to pull on that line to get excitement. What I did with him was the opposite.
Yeah.
The reason he didn't like it because there was no challenge. Every time we went cast here, it was every cast,
Right.
and I made that mistake of just
Making it too easy.
right?
Uh-huh.
And
yeah.
so by the time we went to that trip, he came home. He started going to ponds. I'm like, hey, I'm not catching. I'm like, you try something else? He goes, no. I'm like, and so
Right.
it started. You could see the wheels starting to turn. Okay, maybe I try this bait. Maybe I try bigger or smaller.
I never want to change. Like my lure, same one as you said. I didn't catch
Right.
anything.
Yeah. So that make sure they catch a fish, and then create a little bit of a challenge too. Make it
Right.
to where it's not always easy, right?
That's
and,
right.
And they get fired up about it. And I think some of us just have it in us, right? We know.
Right. Yeah.
You know, if you love fishing or not. But I think we can create it a little bit by making sure we make it exciting. One of the big things that I really push big time, and I've tried to do this with his sister and he as well, is less stress in that boat. because it's real easy to get frustrated in a boat. As a fisherman, right? Oh, no. You got to almost hold your tongue and hold everything. Let them tangle it. Let them do all of it, because it just, they feel what's going on. Is this a very fun place to be? Is this fun, Dad, or is this crazy, Dad? Right. And, crazy Dad can come out when I get out there and I'm fishing. So I had to suppress that crazy Dad. And Zoe Grace for the longest time thought Oreos and, peeing in the live well was what everybody did, so
right.
When she was really little. So we tried to make it fun. And now, obviously, Lane loves it. So I think it works. But that challenge was definitely important.
Who do you think's a better fisherman, Les Smith, or your dad? And just remember, he has to. You have to get a ride home from him. Also your supper comes from him. So some other factors might play into this.
Probably less.
Boy, you're watching. You're out. You're out.
Les is pretty good. Les probably gets to fish more than your dad.
He does.
So he's got the advantage. So
I would give Les the advantage for sure. He's amazing.
There you go.
Yep.
Well, that takes us to Tackle Time. Tackle Time sponsored by PICO Lures. PICO Lures has a complete line of hard and soft baits. If you want to go out there and go trolling for crankbaits, trolling for crappie on crankbaits, they got 42 different colors. So you can find what they have there at picolures.com. If they want to find out more, Jeff, where would they go?
Well, obviously our Crappie Magnet and Trout Magnet web pages take you to the same page, or you can go to our social media pages. We post there all the time. Trying to connect with our customers, learning from them, and showing what we're currently doing. So, Trout Magnet or Crappie Magnet Facebook or social media pages. We also have YouTube. We do a lot of YouTube instructional videos on how to use our product. So,
okay, sounds good. Lane, anything else to add to that? Any tips you would give to a kid going out fishing? It's like 14 years old.
Lures you carry all the time.
All right.
Because remember, if he goes in his backpack, it's like he's scaled down, to fish.
Right.
So he knows in a pond, if you're going to catch fish, there's really 2 baits that you need to carry.
Okay.
Or in a creek. Probably in a creek. Let's go with creek. It'd be a trout magnet and a float, basically. And then if they're like really not hitting anything, a mini magnet. It's basically a condensed trout magnet. And probably a float, and just swim it by them. And then for a pond is a slab curly with a fin spin, a 16th or an 8th, and then another trout magnet.
All right, there you go.
Two, kill 'em.
What the heck? Even got fishing tips from Lane. So that works. As I always like to end the show, make sure you keep your hook sharp and your lures in the water.